सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। The third Anuvaka, if you can, please chant along with me. Namah sahamanaय nivyadhina avyadhininam pataye namo namah kakubhaya nishangine stenanam pataye namo namo nishangina ishudhimate तस्कराणां पतये नमो नमो वञ्चते परिवञ्चते स्थायूनां पतये नमो नमो निचेरवे परिचरायारण्यानां पतये नमो नमः सृकावेभ्यो जिगागंसद्भ्यो मुष्णतां पतये नमो नमोऽसिमद्भ्यो नक्तञ्चरद्भ्यः प्रकृन्तानां पतये नमो नमः उष्णीषिणे गिरिचराय कुलुञ्चानां पतये नमो नमः इषुमद्भ्यो धन्वाविभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः आतन्वानेभ्यः प्रतिदधानेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः आयच्छद्भ्यो विसृजद्भ्यश्च वो नमो नमोऽस्यद्भ्यो विद्यभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः आसीनेभ्यश्च यानेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः स्वपद्भ्यो जाग्रद्भ्यश्च वो नमो नमः स्तिष्ठद्भ्यो धावद्भ्यश्च वो नमो नमः सभाभ्यः सभापतिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो अश्वेभ्योऽश्वपतिभ्यश्च वो नमः। We have seen all the way up until asyadbhyo vidyabhyascha vo namaha. Now repeat after me. Nama asinebhyah shayanebhyascha वो नमो। So yesterday we saw the release and the penetrating impact. Asyadbhyo vidyabhyascha vo namaha. So to draw the entire positivity there are 3 stages. I am just recapping yesterday's. The 3 stages, which is also indicated through the mantra Bhadram Karne Bhishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhirjayatraha. So through those mantras, what is being indicated is when we interact with this world, the first stage of the seeker is when they have just begun with their spiritual unfoldment, and suddenly they carry this attitude holier than the rest of them around. and their entire sadhana is always in a comparative analysis. Look at them, they do all this, I don't do such things. Because I protect myself from all these negativities and I only interact with that which is positive. That which is not positive, I will not interact. So, you will hear statements like, we have stopped watching TV, or we have stopped watching movies, or various such things. That is the first stage. Every seeker should go through them. Well, that is the first stage, initial. Because then you will understand that you cannot stay in that kind of a shell for a lifetime. Life throws so many things at you and you start feeling bitter. Why? You want to only interact with that which is positive. Life does not give us that kind of a luxury. You want a rose, you have to go through the thorny bush. There is always that which pricks. So, what they develop is the next stage, that they develop intense filters, that they brave to interact with the world, filtering out all that which is negative from that maturity at that level, that which is considered as negative, and interact and take only that which is positive. This is all drawing in. Now, the third stage is the most mature stage, wherein they do not look at the world of experiences as positive or negative, but every single experience is looked upon as a stepping stone for a betterment, improvement of their own life, personality and growth in spirituality. Even if there is something which tests them out, they would not portray it as something which is negative that is happening. There is something that I have to learn from this so that I can grow to the next stage, however overwhelming the situation be. Suddenly do not start applying this in a universal manner, pick one stray incident and ask me as to how can you justify this, the third stage of maturity in this kind of situation. The better thing would be that try to understand the third stage in your own personal life and adapting to it, then we will start seeing its application in the world outside as well. You take an arbitrary situation and throw it at me, I will give you an arbitrary answer to it. That is not going to resolve any clarity in our understanding. So, thus drawing in all the experiences and progressing step by step. And the beauty of the spiritual unfoldment, the deeper that you dwell, the higher that you reach. So, after having drawn so much of positivity from every environment that you are existing in, it is not just always like take and take and take. Stop being a sponge or a parasite which only takes from the world outside. Vidhyabhyasya, it has to now start generating positive, constructive, productive, impactful ways to reach out into the world, so that not just me getting better, but the rest of them around me, the entire environment, entire nature, entire neighborhood, entire state, entire country, entire humanity benefits step by step. We cannot just say that I am doing whatever I can. No, whatever you can is a cop out. Whatever the situation is demanding, to bring that out as the best is what spirituality commands within to the without. So, asyadbhyaha asyadbhyaha vidhyabhyascha vo namaha. to that kind of inspired being in that form, to that Lord Shiva, my salutations and prostrations. Now moving forward, Nama asinebhyaha shayanebhyascha vo namaha. Asinebhyaha, asinaha, the one who is seated. So salutations, namaha, asinebhyaha to those who are seated, shayanebhyaha to those who are in the sleeping posture. Asinebhyaha shayanebhyascha vo namaha. Unto such Lord Shiva, who is in different forms, my salutations and prostrations again and again and again. Now, who is asinebhyaha? Those who are seated in high positions of authority, like say a king, there are no more kings, so maybe you can say presidents, power of authority, a boss, a judge. So these positions of power, to see them all with that Ishvara Buddhi. Ishvara Buddhi, a reflection of that Ishvara in these different forms, wherein an aspect of that Ishvara is reflecting in these lives. So with that Ishvara Buddhi, when we approach, that Ishvara provides Abhaya Hasta. Most of the deities in our temples, different forms of gods, you must be having one up there. Can you see him? Right? I cannot. So he is Bhagavan Ramchandra ji. On one side is his Kodanda, and what is he doing with the other hand? That is called Abhaya Hasta. Abhaya meaning to give a sense of security, a sense of belongingness, that worry not, I am there for you. And with that Abhaya Hasta, what does he promise? Fearlessness with the world. So to such asinebhyaha, now we see one of the forms of Lord Shiva is the one facing the south direction, is called the Dakshinamurti Swarupaha. Lord Shiva in the form of Dakshinamurti. And Dakshinamurti is worshipped as the form of Guru. So when we chant Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So it starts with Sadashiva Samarambham, Sadashiva. From that Sadashiva, who is in the form of Dakshinamurti. And if you observe closely, his one foot is on a Rakshasa. Now, who is that Rakshasa? The Rakshasa is our ego. To depict the Rakshasa has been depicted as if they have horns and long teeth, and no, it's just an exaggerated format of the stupid ego. And placing his foot on that ego, what is he doing? He is with his abhaya. How does he provide his abhaya? By giving the students or the seekers knowledge, and that knowledge which gives absolute clarity alone has absolute power. And in very different circumstances, people we hear saying that knowledge is power. So what is that power? Wherever there is knowledge, there is fearlessness. That is the Abhaya Hasta. And to the sleeping form of the Lord, my salutations. Who is the sleeping form? There are various sleeping forms. There is one, Narayana. After having created by Brahma, until there is enough demand, what is he doing? He is in his Yoga Nidra. So, my way of looking at it, it is my personal way of looking at it. Poor Bhagavan is so bored that nobody calls him with intensity that he is almost jobless. Recession hits even there. And because he has not had any job, therefore he is taking rest. So, he is the Sesha Sai, the one who is resting on the Sesha. And then there is also the form of Lord Shiva, who is under the feet of Kali. You may be wondering, right? You may have seen those depiction or photograph or paintings wherein Bhadra Kali is in rage and Bhagavan Shiva is under her foot. Have you seen that photograph? Have you ever wondered why? Strange combination. The idea is that Prakriti, which is represented by Kali, Bhadra Kali, Prakriti can enchant only when she is connected with the consciousness or Parameshwara. Devoid of that contact, there is no independent existence of that Prakriti, therefore that connection. So, when Bhadra Kali is going on a havoc mode, so Bhagavan Shiva lies down there in rerouting that Bhadra Kali back to that stability. And that is what is depicted as Lord Shiva in the sleeping posture. Shayanebhyaha, to that sleeping posture of Bhagavan Shiva, our salutations. Third meaning is, the sleeping and waking states of the Jiva is nothing but the Ishvara who is in this reflected consciousness as the Jiva. Is that Ishvara alone? So, to that one who is seated and the one who is sleeping, that Ishvara, my salutations. There is another beautiful meaning given. The beautiful meaning is, with the sleep, the ajnana of the tattva jnana is indicated. Even in that ajnana, what is essentially sustaining that jivatva? It is that touch of consciousness, the touch of Supreme, because of whose touch everything seems to be running and interacting in their own field. Without that, this is just a dead body. Shayanebhyaha, even in that posture, it is Paramatma alone. Asinebhyaha, the one who is seated firmly in that Tattva Jnana is indicated as Asinebhyaha, the one who is in the trance or transcendental state of meditative equipoise. Asinebhyaha. Therefore, if somebody were to ask, can we meditate while sleeping? It is kind of an impossibility, because we have mastered to sleep even while sitting. Now, what will happen if we one day in a meditation class, I said, seat yourself in a comfortable posture. What I meant was, do not twist and turn your legs and arms in a very awkward position, that will be hurting yourself. Sit in a comfortable posture. And this Amma, she takes the entire space, spreads her mat and sleeps. So I said, oh, sit. No, you only said take a comfortable posture. So since then I have changed the way I speak about that. I say sit in a comfortable posture, not just take a comfortable posture, sit in a comfortable posture. Now in that you withdraw from all these sense organs or attachment to those sense organs, then the mind and the thoughts or the emotions, and then the various decisions and ideas, withdraw from each one of them, centered in the core, being firmly rooted in there, transcend all time and space. That is indicated here as the asinebhyaha. Shayanebhyaha, the one who is ignorant of this particular knowledge. Asinebhyah shayanebhyascha vo namaha. Moving forward in the same note, the next mantra says Namasvapadbhyo Jagradbhyascha vo Namaha. Namaha Svapadbhyo Jagradbhyascha vo Namaha. Namaha, salutations. Swapadbhyo, the one who is in the deep sleep state. Jagradbhyaha, the one who is awake. In both the waker and the sleeper, that which is actually reflecting unto that Paramatma, my salutations and prostrations. If you look at it, it is the job, and one of the Rudra Ganas, the Amsha of Rudra, is to take care of the Kshetra Palaka. Now, Kshetra Palaka is the one who protects that Kshetra. Can they afford to sleep? If you have, say, employed somebody especially as a night watchman, there is this famous story. I think it is the Vikram Betal story, wherein the Betal gives this story and asks a question at the end. So the story is, there was this very vigilant watchman of that kingdom, and one day early in the morning he comes and he says, "O king, in the dream yesterday I saw that you are being attacked by these many different alliance of kings who will be attacking you in these 3 different directions at the same time. So you will not be able to face them at once. Therefore you need to strategize and make sure that you can take care of them at this points. This is what I have seen in the dream." So the king thanks, sends out the scouts and finds that there is a movement, and accordingly he strategizes and plans and nullifies the effect or the impact of these 3 different kingdoms attacking him. Comes back, and then first thing he does is he gives a gift for this watchman, and then he fires him from the job. So the question is as to why did he fire him? The answer is, you are supposed to be the night watchman. You are not supposed to be dreaming. You dreamt because you were sleeping. So thank you for sharing your dream. Therefore you will be fired from that position. Maybe if your premonitions are that true, then I will have you a special post, eat and sleep. and narrate to me all your dreams whenever important. But as a night watchman, you are not supposed to sleep. So, these are the kshetrapalakas. Unto these kshetrapalakas, my prostrations and salutations, because of whose tireless job we stay protected and we stay safe. So, in today's world, you could say that these are the people who are protecting our borders, these are the people who are protecting the neighborhoods, these are the people who are taking care of every single calamity, or they constantly work at it. There is so much of intelligence and so much of effort put in to gain that intelligence that there is not internal attack or external attack, so constantly vigilant. So, to all those people who are jagradbhyaha, who are vigilant, my prostrations and salutations for their effort, because I invoke Lord Shiva in that form as well. Swapadbhyaha and jagradbhyaha. Then comes the swapadbhyaha. Swapadbhyaha, to that Lord who is, see, if there is this eternal discussion as to I am, therefore I think, or I think, therefore I am. Even in one of these Socrates or Plato or one of those, in his huge discussions or debates, this is one of the primary debates. I am, therefore I think, or I think, therefore I am. So, it is, if you look into the scriptures, the answer is very simple. I am, therefore I think. Why? We have three phases of experiences, or three states of consciousness or experience. One is the waking, presently that which we are supposed to be in is a waking. Then is the dream state, then comes the deep sleep state. Now, what happens in the deep sleep state? There is no thinking process. Even in the dream, there are thoughts which multiply themselves and project themselves into various patterns. So, there is waking and there is dream, wherein both there is thoughts constantly moving. But in the dream, or in the deep sleep state, there is absolutely no movement of the mind. The mind has been withdrawn into its seed form. If it were that I think, therefore I am, then none of us would have slept. Or rather, if you look at it in a caricature world, you would be scared to sleep. Why? The moment I sleep, I cease to exist. Therefore, I am scared to sleep. Are we scared to sleep? It is that consciousness which supports even the sleep state. And to that consciousness which supports the deep sleep state, my salutations and prostrations. Swapadbhyo jagradbhyascha vo namaha. The difference between the dream and the waking, or the sleep and the waking, is the eyes open and eyes closed. Right? Like Bhagavan Krishna once goes, he just had his stomach full of milk and cream and all that which he liked. Just after 10-15 minutes he comes back and he asks his mother, can I have more butter? As usually the mothers, they tend to be careful and cautious. Whereas a child, they do not know how much to eat and when to stop. So, they keep the tabs on as to how much they consume. So, she says, you have just had, go play, and in a couple of hours it will be night and then I will give it to you. So, very trickingly he asks, what does night mean? He knows, but he asks the question, and Yashoda Maya, he says, when everything is dark around you, that is called night. So, Bhagavan Krishna immediately closes the eyes and he says, now everything is dark, give me my butter. So, the darkness of the sleep and the waking world, the difference is the eyes open and the eyes closed, unmesha nimisha. So, in this mantra, swapadbhyo jagradbhyo, probably the presiding deity of the eyes are being saluted upon. Who is the presiding deity of the eyes? Surya and Chandra. You can see in the presence of that illumination. And they add the third one for the third eye. They say Surya, Chandra and the Vidyuta. Actually, what Vidyuta they mean is the lightning. But in today's world, I have translated it as the electricity. Either you see in the sun or the moon or the electricity. So, to that sun, moon and the Vidyuta, my prostrations and salutations, because I invoke them as the form of Lord Shiva. Namasvapadbhyo jagradbhyascha vo namaha. Now, the next one, repeat after me. Namastishthadbhyo Dhavadbhyascha vo Namaha. Namastishthadbhyo Dhavadbhyascha vo Namaha. So, here salutations to those who are Tishtadbhyaha. Tishthat, those who are standing. Dhavadbhyaha. Dhavadbhyaha, those who are running. So, a little bit of Shiva Purana is required to understand. Tishtadbhyaha, in the famous Nataraja, the various statues that you see, Bhagavan Shiva seemed to have entered a trance, a meditative trance, in that dancing posture. You know what posture that I am talking about? Now, I am not a good dancer, but still, you know, his hands are on one side and one foot is on the up. Yeah, Nataraja. So, in that Nataraja, when he was in the Adi Tandava, not the Pralaya Tandava, in the Adi Tandava, as he reached to the culmination of that dance, as he lifts his hands and he puts his leg onto the side, he enters that stance of, you know, meditative equipoise, that Tishtadbhyaha, that he was standing for a long time in that position. That is when probably all these sculptors must have seen him, or, you know, taken a photograph, that everywhere there is a Nataraja Murti, it is the same Murti that is seen everywhere. For example, when we think of Swami Vivekananda, what is a picture that comes into our mind? Isn't it this posture? Does it mean that he never moved from that position? But that one posture became very famous. Right? Similarly, Nataraja, who was lost in that meditative equipoise as a culmination of his dance, so tishtadbhyaha, tishtadbhyaha, the one who is standing as if eternal in deep meditation. So tishtadbhyaha. Dhavadbhyascha. Poor Shiva had various avatars wherein he had to run as well. So there was this Asura. This Asura's name is Bhasmasura. So this Bhasmasura did great tapas. Who is an Asura? Who does not have a rhyme, reason or rhythm in their thinking pattern or existence. There is no reasoning to back them. After doing such severe penance, when Bhagavan Shiva appears, what does he end up asking as a boon? He says, "O Lord, give me a boon such a way that on whosoever head my hand is placed, they turn into ash." Why would you want such a boon? Bhagavan said, "Okay, that's a weird one. Okay, fine, whatever, if it pleases you, good for you, go." And this Bhasmasura had a doubt. Bhagavan Shiva was not very serious. Does it really work? Said, "Bhagavan, wait. Let me test this on your head first." Bhagavan said, "I gave you a tool and you want to test that on me." And so Bhagavan Shiva started running. Dhavadbhyascha. And then Bhagavan Vishnu takes the form of Mohini and distracts this Bhasmasura. And this Bhasmasura was also a good dancer. Strange combination. And he took a pride in his dance. So Mohini triggered that aspect and I said, "I challenge you for a duel in dance." The first Jugalbandi. Have you ever seen a Jugalbandi? Between two great artists, there is a duel. It is called Jugalabandi. Jugala means duel. So when somebody is asked for a duel, you cannot throw it aside. They say, "Oh, sure," and they have intense dance. They burn the floor, as they say. And then, in my opinion, dance is simple things made complicated. Ask somebody who does Bharatanatyam to do a simple namaskar. They will do. Have you seen them do that? Bhagwan was offered flowers. They will do something, 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 and then do this. They do offer, na? So Mohini also does some complicated move, and this fellow also is very efficiently maneuvers and presents it, and then he challenges her, and she also does a very good job. And then finally, as a last step, she does something in which the hand comes on the head. So Bhasmasura's hand on his own head, he had the proof for the last time, for the first time and the last time. Until that Bhasmasura's case was taken care by Mohini, Bhagavan Shiva was on the run. Dhavadbhyascha. Then Bhagavan Shiva also acquired Brahma Hatya dosha. When Brahmaji's, he had 5 heads. One of the head was snapped. So he had the Brahma Hatya dosha, and he had to go with that Kapala. and he was running pillar to post, davadbhyascha. In both these forms, the chala avastha and the achala avastha, it is that Lord Shiva who is worshipped. This is the Purana. In the Kenopanishad it is said, Tadejati Tannaijati, that Paramatma is that principle which, staying firm, moves everywhere. Tad ejati, tad na ejati, stays firm and yet moves everywhere. It is not that confusing a concept. Say, with reference to the body, if somebody asks, where do you start and where do you end? Head to toe or toe to head? We have a way of saying it, right? Head to toe. When you say head to toe, does it mean that I start at the head and end at the toe? Because if that is the understanding, then we presuppose something which is very disastrous. Like what? For example, you are all here. Is it okay to assume that you are not at your home, at least physically? Is it okay to assume? If you are here, you are not there. In another half hour or so, when the class is done, you will go back to your house, which means you are not here. So, when you say head to toe, tell me when you start from your head. So, when you start from your head, what is the presupposition? That you are not in your toe. And the moment you reach your toe, does it mean that you are not in your head? Seems funny, right, to think it that way? Because I am there all through at every single point of time with respect to the body. With respect to the body, I am all pervasive. With respect to the body, I am all pervasive. I am there every inch. Similarly, Paramatma with respect to this universe, he is everywhere. Therefore, tad ejati. He seems like moving faster than the fastest and seems to be everywhere. And since everything is nothing but consciousness, tad na ejati, doesn't move, stays firm. So, tishtadbhyaha davadbhyascha. Even in Mahatmas, you will find both categories. Those who have not moved out of their place, their entire life they have stayed in one place. And they are students, they have not stopped running around the entire globe. See, Swami Tapon Maharaj, he was in Uttarkashi and did not move out of Uttarkashi. When he was young, he moved to Rishikesh, and then when he got little older, he moved from Rishikesh to further up. But after that, he never came down. And his student, Gurudev Swami Chinmayananji, there is not a country, not a continent which has not been touched. When we look at the archives of his various efforts, he has even been to China. In those days, when the Cold War and other, the Chinese was very aggressive. There was no way that there was somebody spiritual that to Hindu would have gone. Gurudev had gone there and he was invited by as a state official, he was invited by them and he gave a talk in China. I don't know what would have been the talk. You've been to China too. Now let's take the second example is Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He came to Dakshineshwara in Calcutta, settled in Calcutta, never moved out of that Calcutta. And his student, Vivekananda, he never stopped at one place, constantly on the move. Both in those who are constantly moving and those who are not moving, it is that Paramatma alone which is reveled by both of them. Tishtadbhyo dhavadbhyascha vo namaha. Shiva is that Sakshi Swarupa. Sakshi Swarupa, he is the immobile, Tishtati. He is Nitya Sakshi. There is never a moment wherein he exists not. And it is that same Shiva with the identification of the Upadhi of the instrument of mind, he never ceases or stops to move. Rightfully so. If the mind was not functioning in its direction as it should function, the first thing people complain is, oh, my mind, I have so many thoughts. Congratulations. Why? Your instrument is functioning. If you have too many thoughts, continuous thoughts overwhelming you, that means it is functioning in the right way. That functioning of the mind constantly running with thoughts is one aspect of the mind which has to be controlled, which has to be managed. There is another aspect of this mind which does such an awesome job, and gladly that it does its awesome job, otherwise there will be such a chaos. Even with the mind functioning such flawlessly, there are enough chaos, enough misunderstandings. Now what does this mind do? It tirelessly functions in packaging and cognizing every moment's worth experience. Now what happens? Through the eyes we see, through the ears, so in today's language if I have to say, through the eyes we have MP4 video format, through the ears it is MP3. So through the nose the smell, the tongue the taste, and through the skin touch. At any given point of time, at any moment, per second, do you know how much information, data is gathered per second? It's a staggering amount of information that goes in. It's about 4 gigabytes worth data goes in every second. See, if it was 1 kilo, 2 kilos or 1 pound, 2 pound, you will have a quantifiable picture in your head to assess it. When I say 4 gigabytes worth data going in, it's not a small amount. The easiest way to understand how much amount is, for 4 gigabytes there are about approximately 1000 songs, with each averaging to 3 to 4 minutes. 1000 songs can be stored. Now does it give you a picture, a quantity? 1000 songs worth data is received by our system per second. And still we are not lost, thanks to the mind which is constantly processing. What does the mind do? Through the eyes, through the ears, through the nose, through the tongue, through the skin, all the data that comes in at every single moment, it packages them, bundles them as little packets of experiences. At every single moment, it is constantly working. And it does an amazing job of synchronizing. If that synchronizing process were not in place, this whole world would have been an asylum, lunatic asylum. Imagine, you must have seen these DVDs when they are not printed properly, especially when there are these bootlegged movies and other things. I am sure you have seen them, right? There are the video is going at one pace, audio is going either at a slower pace or at a faster pace. How long can you watch such a movie? It irritates you because there is no synchronization, right? Now imagine there are 5 tracks. With the eyes, so much of information, with the ears, so much of information, with the nose, so much of tongue, so much of information, skin, so much of information. And all this information with their individual time maps have to be matched, synchronized and packaged as one tiny particle of experience. Without a discrepancy of some time ago the vision scene and something, it does not match. Constantly, as long as you are awake, the mind is constantly processing. Dhavati, dhavati, constant movement. So, to that constant movement of the mind, which has been well designed, to that Ishvara in this upadhi and functionality, my salutations and prostrations. Even with this mind so flawlessly working, isn't there enough of misunderstanding, miscommunication? And then you try to identify as to what exactly is that misunderstanding. Oh, I thought you said this. The packaged information is right, but the interpretation of that information went wrong. Therefore, there is miscommunication. But the basic concept of the mind functioning in its field, it is a flawless thing. One of the most amazing aspects of our mind and its functionality. So, to such a processing, our salutations and prostrations. Namasthishtadbhyo dhavadbhyascha vo namaha. Moving forward, repeat after me. Namasabhabhyaha sabhapatischa, sabhapatibhyascha vo namo. Namasabhabhyas sabhapatibhyascha vo namo. So, namaha, salutations, sabhabhyaha, sabhabhyaha, to the assembly, to the gathering. Sabhapatibhya, sabhapatibhya, to the one who is presiding in that particular assembly, or the one who is the lord of these assemblies. My salutations and pranams. Now, what does sabha mean? Sa means along with. Sa means along with. Savijnana. Savijnana means along with wisdom. Vijnana means wisdom. So, sa there means along with that wisdom. Bha means to illumine. Therefore, the sun is called Bhaskara. Bhaskara, the one who brings in illumination. So, Sabha means that which is along with illumination, or that which brings forth illumination, light of wisdom or clarity. Therefore, all the assemblies or the Sabha is supposed to be a place wherein we get together to acquire that knowledge which unbinds us, which frees us from any kind of bondage or limitations. That assembly alone can be called as Sabha. Otherwise, you can call it a parliament. That is also assembly. But the knowledge or wisdom, does it happen? Probably not. Is the government still shut? I am just inquiring. And that is what happens. When in the assembly they have to come together, rather they rip it apart. And this happens universally. Universally, all forms of such parliaments are a stalemate. See, any assembly or gathering, that which leads to this kind of knowledge, that which unbinds us, frees us from all bondages and limitations, can alone be called as Sabha. Sabha, that which is illumining. So, therefore, Sabhabhyaha, Sabhabhyaha, that Shiva himself is that Nitya Sakshi. Nitya Sakshi, constant illuminator. The Jiva is also illuminating. Can you all see me? Give me some answer. Okay, good. Can you all hear me? Good. It is, this whole environment is illumined by that consciousness through the eyes, through the ears, through the various organs of perception. So, the Jiva is also illumining constantly. Therefore, both the Jiva as well as Paramatma are called Sabha. Both are called Sabha. But the Jiva, though, is Anadi. Paramatma is also Anadi. Adi means there is a beginning. Anadi, there is no beginning. So, both Jiva and Paramatma are Anadi, beginningless. But the Jiva is not Ananta. Anta means end. Ananta, that which never ends. Whereas Paramatma is Ananta. So, to show the difference, it has been said here as, though both are Sabhabhyaha, both Jiva and Ishvara are Sabhabhyaha, it is only the Ishvara who can be the Sabhapatibhyaha, the one who is the Lord of all such Jivas. Whether you believe in God or not, whether you are an atheist or a theist, it does not matter. Because essentially that which is being called as God, if you say that you do not believe in God, it means that you do not believe in yourself. Isn't it? If you understand Vedanta, what does it boil down to be? That God is this consciousness within the core of our own being. And that very consciousness is pervading through all the expressions of these different beings. Therefore, when I see all these beings, I put my hands together to say, to offer that my salutations to that consciousness in you. Namaste, when we say, te meaning unto you that consciousness, my prostrations or salutations. So, of all these jivas, it is the Ishvara who is the Sabhapatibhyascha. He is the Lord of all these jivas. Therefore, Namaha Sabhabhyaha Sabhapatibhyascha vo Namaha. The one who is illumining both as Jiva and Ishvara is the Sabha, and the Ishvara is the Pati of the Lord of all these Jivas, expressing as these different Jivas. Therefore, he is the Sabhapatibhyascha. Unto him my prostrations and salutations. Now, the last yajush of this particular anuvaka, it says, repeat after me. Namo ashvebhyo ashvapatibhyascha vo namaha. Namo ashvebhyo shvapatibhyascha vo namaha. Namaha, salutations. Ashvebhyaha, those who are in, to those who are in the form of horses. One very peripheral meaning of Ashva is horse. Ashvapati, to those who are riding those horses. To both the horses as well as those who are riding the horses, my salutations to you in all these different forms. So, one meaning is you are the Ashva. Ashva, not just the human beings, but in all forms and creatures. That the entire universe is an expression of that Paramatma, whether be it sentient or insentient. To put it in a very layman's terms, every aspect of this creation has a soul in it, including the stone, plant, animal, bird, human beings, in every form there is that Ishvara alone. Ashvebhyaha Namaha. Therefore, in our Sanatana Dharma, in our Hindu tradition, there is not a thing or not a being who is not worship worthy. Therefore, you will find us in our traditions that we worship trees, we worship stones, we worship mountains, we worship rivers, we worship animals, we worship birds, we worship the other forms of beings. And it is not because of primitiveness that this is being worshipped. It is actually the sophistication of the spiritual thought that every aspect of this universe is something that I can connect to because it is nothing but divine. To uplift our minds to that status wherein I can see nothing but divinity around. See, I am not specifically using here the word to see everything as positive, because positive always has a duality and the other end of the spectrum is negativity. If there is good, there is bad. So, the positivity, negativity, goodness, badness, this kind of polarity, duality exists in our perception. What essentially exists beyond the layers of these polarities is divinity, and that divinity is expressing through various forms and formats. Ashvebhyaha namaha. Ashvapatibhyascha namaha. And who is it that is expressing? It is to that Ishvara, it is to that Parameshvara that my salutations. In the beginning of the second Anuvaka, we saw Jagatam Pataye Namaha, that he is the Lord of this entire universe. So that is what we are trying to conclude in this third Anuvaka, saying that it is that Lord who is Ashvebhyo Ashvapatibhyaha Namaha. This is first meaning. The second meaning, Ashva means the Karmendriyas. There is one meaning of Karmendriya which means Ashva. And Sanskrit has got a very wide spectrum of meanings. Karmendriyas are also known as Ashva. So, to the functional hands and legs or the Karmendriyas, my salutations. Sthirairangaistuštuvagum sastanubhihi vyashema devahitam yadayuhu swasti na indro vruddhashravaha swasti na pusha vishvavedaha swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi swasti no brahaspatir dadhatu. Sthiraihi angaihi tushtuvam sastanubhihi. So, may all the Karmendriyas, because the Jnanendriyas is already mentioned. So, may all the Karmendriyas, may all these functional Karmendriyas, I invoke that Shiva alone. We will come in the last Anuvaka of, or last but one Anuvaka of this Rudram, wherein the mantra says, Ayam me hasto Bhagavan, ayam me Bhagavattaraha, ayam me vishvabhe shajojagam shivabhimarshanaha. To that divinity which functions through these hands as service, to reach out to all those who are in need, to such functional hands, to such functional instruments, my salutations and prostrations. So, these Karmendriyas are called Ashva. And the Ashvapati, that conscious principle which makes these organs of perception and action functional, to that Ashvapati my salutations. And the best thing is, offer these organs and the expressions of the interactions of these organs, offer them to that Paramatma, that thereby every single act, deed, interaction becomes devotion in expression. That is what becomes the most kalyanottama for the jiva. Ashvebhyaha ashvapatibhyascha, second meaning. The third meaning is Shva means tomorrow. Shva means tomorrow. Ashva means no certainty of tomorrow. What is it? This entire Vishwa, this entire Jagat, this entire creation is something which does not have a permanency of tomorrow. That who has manufactured these various things that exist in this universe himself is not permanent. That which is manufactured by him, can it be permanent? You can see that, when you see a vast range of history, something say 5, 10, 15,000 years. In those 15,000 years, there is so much that can go morphed. That which was then is no more now, it just keeps changing. In fact, the definition of this universe is that change is the changeless law of this universe. Everything changes. So, to such a change, Ashva, that which does not have a certain tomorrow, Parivartanashila Jagat, my pranams. Because that Parivartanashila Jagat is also nothing but an expression of Paramatma. Therefore, in the Vishnu Sahasranama we see that the first name of Vishnu, it does not start with Vishnu, it starts with Vishwam, that this entire universe is the expression of you, O Lord. So, Ashva, Ashvapati, he is not just the Vishwa, but he is also the Vishveshwara, the Lord of this entire creation. The reason I keep using creation or cosmos and not universe, because the Hindu belief is that it is not just uni, it is multi, it is multiverse. There are more than one. You cannot say the universes, right? When you know that there are more, there is more than one verses, if you know what I am talking. Akhilanda Koti Brahmanda Nayakasya, this is one Brahmanda, and Akhilanda Koti, and there are innumerable number of such parallel creations. So, all such creations, he is the Vishveshwara, the Lord of all these which is being created. The third meaning. The fourth meaning is Ashva. This is Bhatta Bhaskara, he gives this unique meaning of Ashva, is that those seekers who have taken to this path of wisdom and dispassion have shunned away from anything to do with wealth. To such sincere seekers, my salutations, because when you offer salutations to such seekers, it is in fact being directed to that Paramatma himself. And then Ashvapati, Ashvapati, those people who have wealth and serve these kind of dispassionate seekers, to such Ashvapati, that Shri expressing, Shri the wealth which is expressing through them in such service, it is that Lord himself who is expressing. So, the salutations unto such Lord again and again and again. So, thus we come to the end of the second Anuvaka. Yeah, third Anuvaka. Tomorrow we will see the beginning of fourth Anuvaka. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.